Welcome to the space for transformational leaders to unleash their magic, see better client results, work lighter, and live source. I want to start by just sharing a little story. For those of you who have taken any of my retreat programming, it's always great to start with a story, right? Because everybody's arriving, you can get settled, you can get relaxed into the space, get connected. And I thought, well, what's the story? What's the story today? And I immediately thought, well, why not tell the story about why I wrote this book? And as I was thinking about the story of why I wrote this book, I realized that it's many, many years in the making. Retreat and Grow Rich was my first book. And I knew I had been teaching the curriculum for a long time. And I knew I wanted to just write something I'd been teaching, something that was easy, that I knew worked, would make a difference for people. This book feels like it's different, right? And if you guys, I've gotten so many messages that, you can feel the energy. The graphic designer who created this, Veronica, is here this weekend with us, but you can just feel it, right? When I sat down to think, well, what is the story about why I wrote this book? It's a story with a few chapters, but it really is a story called How I Became a Fanatic About Truth. And if you've read the book, the heart of the book is the anatomy of a transformation. And the very heart of the anatomy of a transformation is truth, right? It's the stage where your client receives truth. So how I became a fanatic for truth started back in 1999. So in 1999, I was working as an engineer at Procter & Gamble. And things were going well. I was in my 20s, right? And I felt really cool. I had this big job and I loved it. And then I was selected to be trained as a coach. There were 20 some of us that were selected for this training, all levels of the organization. I was a senior engineer at the time. And in this training, we were learning to help facilitate good working relationships. So if two people started working together and they had what they called social distance, we would sit down and meet with them. Two of us would meet with them and help them to identify if there were any judgments they had about each other. We had to be aware of our own judgments. So in this training, we did an exercise that was called the Fishbowl. And in the Fishbowl, there's 20 some of us, circle of chairs. And one by one, we went into the center of the circle and we had to tell our story about our judgments. And we had to do this 5 times. We had to tell our story about our judgments about gender, about race, about sexual orientation, and about age, maybe 4 times. And so you had to tell your story, and everybody on the outside of the circle would give you a thumbs up or a thumbs down if they thought you were telling the truth. So I want you just to imagine that. Here I am, I'm 20 something. And at this time, I have a pretty strong armor in life, right? I am right, I am smart, I have a good job, I'm a badass, and nobody fuck with me, basically, right? That was kind of where I was at. And I was nice and sweet and I loved people and all of the things that I have. But in my heart of hearts, I was so hurt that I never wanted anybody to look within and see my truth, right? I had this idea of what it took for me to be okay in life. And that was how I was going about life. So it's the night before I need to sit in the center of the circle and tell my story about my judgments about gender. And I am in the emergency room. My body literally started breaking down because I was so terrified to be in front of people and speak my truth. Like to act, first of all, I I didn't want to see the things that were true. And I definitely didn't want to speak about it. So I end up in the emergency room, but I made it. I'm a good student, right? I made it, and I sat in the fishbowl and I told my story. And I shared things that I had never even realized were affecting me. Because I had, up until that point, my opinion was I was fine, right? My parents divorced when I was young. It was very violent, the experience of them breaking up. I was there, but here I am in front of 24 of my colleagues realizing, okay, that wasn't exactly true. But here's what I learned in that experience. And this is what I often have referred to as a punch in the gut moment. And I'm going to talk later about embodiment and slowing down and being present and all the things I've learned since. I probably wouldn't choose such a violent phrase as punch in the gut now, but it really felt like that. So what I learned is we can tell when someone's telling the truth. We just know when someone's telling the truth, right? When we're really present and we're paying attention, everybody on the outside would give a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you're telling the truth. And so, if people weren't telling the truth, they had to kind of dig deeper and they had to go back to their story and really look at what was it that really happened. In that moment, I was like, it was like I discovered, I don't know, water, right? Or air. It's like, I'm looking around at people like, why are you not so excited? Like, why isn't anybody telling us this, that if we just align with our truth, like everything works, right? It's like, suddenly I could see, in corporate, the meeting before the meeting, in order to get on the same page to go to the meeting, because nobody wanted to dare like go to a meeting and speak the truth, right? And so I could see this everywhere. I could see the way we were conditioning our kids to be a particular way, as opposed to tune in and learn and trust their own truth. And all of a sudden I could see it everywhere. So I'm curious, I'd love to hear a little bit from people in the chat. Who's had an experience like this, where you